各位观众朋友们，大家好，欢迎收看 JxJ 论坛，由我马健 Jimmy 马与我们的好朋友 Jim Noteware 为我们一起讨论这个礼拜的时事。Jim, how are you?
I'm doing fine. As you remember, last weekend, July 4th, was my birthday, and I don't feel a bit older. So we're continuing on.
You're not. I mean, 60s is the new 50.
Yeah,
with medical advances, we're going to live to 100, so we better take advantage of it.
I think we are. We're going to have the Chinese longevity. That's what we're doing.
Well, the way that you've lost weight and keeping yourself busier than ever, I truly believe that, and this show might be 20 years and running because I'm pretty sure we'll still be going. You're not going to retire anytime soon, but I do hope you save 20 years, 30 years to travel the world, enjoy yourself, because you've done a lot. We're discussing earlier the new opportunities you have. Congratulations on the new role to advise and to help, based on your reputation and integrity. And I applaud you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Jimmy. More details to come.
But yes, we should definitely discuss that. I think when you talk about real estate and commercial development, there's just decades of insider knowledge that everyone will benefit from hearing. However, we do want to touch base today based on what we talked about for the last few months, a series, a focus on Sino-U.S. relationship. We didn't quite bring up the Belt and Road Initiative. We as a normal citizen, we hear about it. We kind of know a little about it. But there's just so much more intricacies and so much more debate about it. What is your take on the Belt and Road Initiative?
There have been some articles recently talking about the Belt and Road Initiative in Montenegro and a few other places around the world. But really, this is nothing new. There have been problems like these in Pakistan, in Sri Lanka, in the Bahamas, in Jamaica. And fundamentally, from a borrower standpoint, or from a third country standpoint, like Montenegro or Pakistan or Jamaica, they should recognize that three or four related things. Number one, China doesn't do anything that doesn't suit China first and foremost. Their objective is to strengthen China, not the borrower. Secondly, the terms of the borrowing, when a country like Jamaica or Pakistan takes the loan, it's clear to me that they never analyze how they're actually going to pay it back. And so what happens is they fall into the same trap of defaulting. And given the legal systems between countries, for instance, Sri Lanka lost their port. The Chinese now run the port of Sri Lanka. And Pakistan is worried about the same things happening to major pieces of their infrastructure. And we could go on and on. Toll roads in Jamaica, same kinds of things. And so what it really is, it's an opportunity for China to continue its geographic, its philosophical, and its economic expansion in such a way that they really are reestablishing colonialism as it was back in the 17th and 18th centuries. And what we as the United States need to do is to be everybody's best friend and continue to provide economic and philosophical assistance, starting with, and I heard one of the senators say it last night, the most important thing we can do economically and from a foreign diplomacy standpoint, we need to provide, we as the United States need to provide vaccines to literally everyone in the world, because particularly the third world is suffering the most. And that suffering is only beginning. It is likely to take hold. And the United States has enjoyed a mixed reputation over the years, but it has done as much good as it's been criticized for doing not so good. And I think this creates the Chinese follow through on the Belt and Road Initiative. And what they've done in the Bahamas with Baha Mar is just a travesty. And many of the countries that become China's borrowers or China's partners, what they want, in addition to the capital, in addition to the infrastructure, they want the jobs. But what China does is it brings its own employees around and brings everybody in from afar. They're spreading Chinese labor around the world. And so the local countries don't get what they think they've bargained for. So it's very, very much a one-way deal. It's like a ratchet continuing to turn and continuing to tighten. If the Chinese government touts the Belt and Road Initiative as if it's a diplomatic effort to continue to win friends around the world. That's not it at all. This is a wolf in sheep's clothing, and it has been for some time. And it's just maturing, and people are seeing what I call the full cycle effects of it now, because it's taken a while for some of these relationships to mature. And unfortunately, a small country like Montenegro really has very little defense.
See, Jim, this is a question to see different perspective. Yeah. So the media or Western media reports on this, okay, it may or may not be true, because Serbia is not, Montenegro is not griping about it. When in the same news articles you read about them, they tell them that this is their own mistake and not China's fault. But I mean, yes, you're talking about so many different countries that takes the money. But the fact is that if you take, there's no free lunches in this world, Jim. Okay? And if a leader of a country wants to improve infrastructure, which Western nations really have been dropping the ball on that. I mean, we know even our own infrastructure is crumbling, because we went through that decades ago. Right now, the funds are mostly spent on developing AI, space initiative, or economic development in the world instead of infrastructure. So China is going back doing that, and these countries don't have to take it. They definitely don't have to take this. But here's what I want to hear about. When we say it's a trap, when we say it's harsh terms, China doesn't have the influence to impose these Belt and Road deals on these developed countries that are developing. And the fact is, based on the news reports that we have researched, a very recent 2020 report by Chatham House, the Royal Institute of International Affairs, which is unbiased, has found limited evidence that China's BRI scheme has engaged in the debt trap diplomacy, and that these countries, furthermore, that the country's Montenegro's former government greenlighted for a Chinese court of arbitration to have the final say on any contractual disputes. And their current deputy prime minister, Bazovic, said that the terms are ludicrous, but it was from the former government signed it. So a lot of these negativity comes out when these countries have a change of leadership, right? So it's always easier to criticize. But the fact is, what you said are all true. What we read is all true. But how is it being reported? How is it being presented as news is what affects how you view it. We don't know the effects of it, I think. I cannot see the effects of it until 10, 20 years later. I really can't. But based on this one report, the road to is a highway built from nowhere to nowhere. Yes, they want to bring the country, the northern hilly areas, underdeveloped areas, to the ocean, to the more economically developed areas, which is a lot of countries want to do that. They don't have the funds, nor the technology, nor the labor to do it. Right. So they do it for free, with hoping that they will reap the benefits. And China has an abundance of skill set from their own building, and they're building something, exporting it. Right. I have to see it as a win-win. But remember, any time that it's done by the Chinese Communist Party, CPP, it automatically gets McCarthyism. That's what I think. Immediately gets that cap on, saying they're trying to expand. They're this. But like you said earlier, Western colonialism, I mean, that's what is this? Is China's way of colonialism? I don't know. I mean, we don't know the real effects of it until maybe a decade or two down the road, I would imagine.
We probably don't. I think it's probably true that no one coerced or forced these countries to sign these loan agreements. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they did it voluntarily by whatever government was in power to represent those countries at the time. It looks to me very similar to what our mortgage crisis was here in the United States back in 07 and 08.
That's what caused the last great
where there were so many people of modest means and literally no experiential background in home ownership or economics or personal finance that desperately wanted to own homes. So they voluntarily, willingly, eagerly signed mortgage documents with high leverage that committed them to pay big amounts of money way out there in the future. Then the future came, and the future came faster than they thought. Or they had mishaps that they didn't anticipate. And all of a sudden, they not only lost their home, they lost everything in their home, they lost their life savings, they lost everything about it. So my point is, these countries are so desperate for economic development and all the things that they think will come along with it, employment, good infrastructure, better quality of life, improved economic development and spin-off opportunities, that they are so eager to sign up for it that they do. And they almost never fully appreciate all the risks that they're taking, all of the subtleties, like who is actually going to supply the labor and the training to build these facilities. Chinese bring their own labor. What is the court system? Many of these countries do not have the rule of law that we know, and it ultimately comes down to enforcement, underlining the word force in enforcement. So it's a perilous journey, and I don't know of very many examples where things have turned out well. Maybe there are. If I were China, I would publicize the ones that have turned out well.
I feel like the Chinese state media are not, in their defense, they're saying that they don't need to kowtow to the Western standard or to appease to Western media. To me, is that they are just too rough and square and hard and unwielding to have any flexibility or to have any tact in publicizing their success or even to cover up their warts. I think they're too stuck in their ways still. You know, the way we look at North Korea is what we look at China even 30 years ago. The way that China looks at North Korea. So to explain that to this current generation is hard for them because they look at North Korea the same way we look at them now, a backward country that has no transparency, that is brutal and harsh, and you know what I mean? But for them to say that, no, we're not. Well, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, before it opened up, it was the same thing. And now, but like I said, Jim, we have to give them the benefit of the doubt because this is unprecedented. Belt and Road just started in 2013, barely 8 years. These countries that went out and got these, it's not like they're able to get help from us or from the World Bank. We all know the World Bank and the NATO the developed countries are going to stay on the top. And we're lucky to be born and raised in one of the top countries. But if we lost the gene lottery, the sperm lottery, and we were born in Montenegro or Sri Lanka or these countries, and we happen to lead, if there was no option, I might consider that because the future of my country to survive, the survival is going to be more important than, like you said, right? The crisis 2008. There were predatory lending agencies. What Bear Stearns and them did was prey on the financially illiterate. I think these countries are not financially illiterate. They just didn't have another way. Or to them, it was mutually beneficial for them. No, they're mortgaging the future. That's what they're doing for now. Mm-hmm. And I mean, kicking the ball down the road. I mean, isn't that what Washington, D.C. is doing? Isn't that what our social security system is doing? So for us to criticize them while we're doing the same thing is, yeah.
We just aren't as far down the road. I mean, some of us have been warning about this for a very long time. We just don't know what the shape of the hazard actually is going to be. But we know it's not going to be good.
Well, it's like seeing a runaway train, it's very, very hard. We shall see. I hope that when we discuss this down the road, I hope we're both wrong, or maybe we're both right? Or one of us is right and one of us is right. I hope so, because I hope it works out for everyone, because I still believe that a mutually beneficial development, I mean, this world is big enough to have multiple economic superpowers. Right. I think that we could all coexist and grow our economy and advance technology and human life equally without taking away. It's not a zero-sum game. No. Even though it truly is when it comes to diplomacy and world dominance. Every country, do you understand what I'm trying to get to?
Not only do I understand it, but I think, we talked a little bit about this last time. I'll give you a counterexample. Look what the relationship between the U.S. and China has done for China and for the United States over the last 40 or 50 years, since Nixon and Kissinger went there in the 70s. Look at how China's export economy has expanded. It's expanded not only in volume, but in expertise and all this economic spin-off benefits, lifestyle benefits to the rest of China. If it hadn't had the great big market to sell things to called the United States, a lot of that wouldn't have happened. Some of it would have, but not all of it.
No, none of it would have happened. But Jim, once again, the flip side of the coin. Yes, there's no doubt. But this was at the sacrifice. No, not the sacrifice. It was a few countries were taking advantage of. This was done over the dead body of the Republic of China, Taiwan, whom we have a mutual agreement, legal document as allies. The Republic of China, Taiwan is representing China up until Nixon went behind their back and secretly signed the deal with China. So, I mean, you know what I mean? There's going to be somebody that is going to be left out. Yeah. And in this situation that was created, it's a shame because United States, we had to recognize what will benefit our country. Just like whatever's doing in Beijing, they have to do what is right for their country.
Well,
and if it's at the expense of lesser allies that are less advantageous to us, so be it. Nobody will ever sit back and say that was a mistake. The only people that say that are Chiang Kai-shek and his government and the people that was left in Taiwan. And the Republic of China, Taiwan obviously has gone long ways down the road in the 50 years that it has happened. It has. I mean, there was a period of time when people didn't think that that island would survive, and they toughed it out. But either way, you're right. It was mutually beneficial, but at the time, it was very unpopular. At the time, there were a lot of Republican legislators that were they were up in arms about it because we renegated on a long-standing strategic agreement on one of our longest allies, and to basically secretly sign a deal with the enemy. But you see, as time goes forward, you look back and you see, hey, it turned out to be a right decision.
Yeah. Well,
you don't have to say it was the right decision.
When I lived in Washington in the 70s, and Nixon and Kissinger opened up the relationship, everyone was talking about Peking duck, Peking duck, Peking duck. And one of the comedians said, well, let's talk about Taiwan duck. So what is Taiwan duck? Well, first you get a duck and you promise you're going to take very good care of him. And then you cut off his head. That was Taiwan duck.
I'm sorry. It's sad. It is sad, but I shouldn't be laughing. Hold on. Let me get this right.
That's why comedians tell the truth.
I can't believe we remember that, but that's the perfect analogy. Yeah, Taiwan duck now is still a sitting duck. Taiwan is still a sitting duck. Wow.
Yeah.
I have not heard that one. I think I was born at the wrong day and age, but I haven't heard this one. I may I borrow this, Jim?
Oh, use it anywhere you want. Use it. By the way, let me switch gears just a little bit, because the other thing that's going on right now, President Xi made a very impassioned speech last week at the 100th anniversary celebration of the CCP.
You actually watched it?
Well, I didn't watch it, but I read accounts of it.
I didn't know. I didn't watch it. I didn't read about it. I just propaganda.
One of the things he said is, foreign powers are testing us. And he basically gave a very strong, assertive statement that foreign powers better not test the sovereignty of China and interfere in its internal affairs, as if warning, stay away, stay away, stay away. And I can understand that. But the other thing that is flowing from this is now China is attacking verbally, diplomatically, some of the Western countries that have been part of what I'll call the old British Empire, Australia, Canada, the United States, of course, and criticizing the best defense is a good offense, and criticizing the immigration policies, the ethnic relations, etc. And many of or several of the countries like Canada and Australia are taking a deep affront to that. And my recommendation is they should say, fine, you know what? We did have a difficult history. We do have problems like this. And we should be totally forthcoming, absolutely totally forthcoming with the facts, present the facts as best as we know them, and say, we knew at the founding in 1776, we did not have a perfect union, but our goal is to get better and better and better. Like one of the old Asian proverbs, the search for constant improvement. And that's what we're trying to do. And we have been getting better and better. Are we there? No, we have a long way to go, but we continue to try. And parts of our countries and parts of our societies are trying in different ways. But
Jim, then I mean, it sounds like you're trying to justify or defend. I don't think it's necessary. I think that transparency alone, that the transparency that Canada and the United States have alone, the fact that you're not allowed to just cover this up, that we have media, we have independent news, and we have social media, and the fact that it's transparent already is a step up. Yes, there was mistakes made. I mean, I am absolutely vehement that the Catholic Church, the Canadian government, somebody needs to be responsible for it. There's no limit to the investigations and how deep it goes. But the fact that it is out in public, even though so long ago, the fact that the Boy Scouts abuses and is being sued and bankrupt, and the Vatican and look.
And it shows the strength of our legal system, of our university system, of our media system, of our entertainment system, that all of those institutions and industries participate together.
The forefathers of this nation and Canada and a lot of Western nations built on, starting from the Crusades, okay? But we learned from it. This country learned from it. Let me put it this way. The ancestors of a certain race, the debts should not be paid by the children who were innocent, who did not participate in this. Just like at a different time. Look, hard topic talking about slavery is wrong. We know that now, absolutely wrong. But if you were born, and I'm not justifying, if you were born in the 1800s on a southern plantation, whether you know it's wrong or not, did not affect whether you participate. You were born there. Doesn't mean you actively participated or supported it, because it's part of life. Same thing I tell Chinese people. If you grew up during the Cultural Revolution in the 70s, no matter how hardworking or how smart or how patriotic you are being purged and you will die of famine. 80%, 90% of people will die. where you're born during that time frame, that the environment, the macro, the micro, it affects you. It doesn't mean you're not capable or a bad or a good person. Right. So what you said is true, is that this colonial legacy, this is, I don't know what Beijing's doing. I really don't think they have a well thought out process.
And they probably do not. Jimmy, I've got to apologize. I'm going to have to.
I know you got to
go for now, but let's carry this over next week. I think this is the beginning of a very important avenue of discussion.
Of course. Perfect. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Let me go to stop recording first before you go. Okay. I will